there is an element of fantasy and make-believe. And, you know, that to me was the appeal of like, you know, people like Mark Hamill coming. Like you get to come and play and be ridiculous.
Yeah. And ridiculous is what I leaned into.
And like, I think that's how we got such great people.
Yeah.
And I think that I think the show benefited from that too. And it also allowed, you know, the regulars and, you know, people like Grant to be really grounded on opposite that. Like, because you can have a really grounded Flash, because he is so grounded, you can have the other characters getting really big. Like, it's fun.
Yeah.
I loved it.
I had so much fun. I had, till this day, when people ask me what show I had the most fun doing, what character in my entire career, I always say that character.
And you got to have so much fun creating the look for her too, with the lashes and everything.
Oh, it was nuts. We had so much fun in that room, in the makeup trailer, just being like, trying to figure out what's the craziest thing we could put on my face and see if it'll work.
Because they're superheroes. They're not grounded in reality. Like,
you can do whatever you want.
Exactly.
Blah, blah, blah. With Katee Sackhoff.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. I am Katee Sackhoff, and this is Blah, Blah, Blah. If you are listening at, you know me, you guys already screwed up, but that's fine. Don't forget to like, subscribe. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, thank you so much. Like, subscribe. I don't even know if you can like and subscribe over there, but, you know, do it anyway. And if you're watching this on YouTube, hey, you're going to notice we're in a new studio, and we hopefully fixed our sound issues. I am so excited for this episode today. I am sitting here with somebody who I absolutely love and adore professionally and personally, Miss Danielle Panabaker. Welcome to Blah,
Thank
Blah, Blah.
you. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy for you to be here.
I'm excited about this.
I'm glad our sound got fixed.
Me too. You guys have had quite a journey with that.
It's been really, listen, it's nothing good comes from easy. What is it? There's no good comes from things that are too easy. I don't know.
Sure, I believe it.
It's fine. I'm so excited for you to be here because, you know, for many reasons, you know, you are such a phenomenal woman and you've accomplished so much in your career and also your personal life. But you are also one of the funnest people to work with.
Oh, thank you.
And I think we bonded over like professionalism and like enjoying our job and respecting our job. And so I love that.
Me too.
But I wanted to start back because I always forget. I don't forget, but it always shocks. This is all now. It sounds awful. You are probably one of the smartest people I know.
Oh, thank you.
You really are. And
Thanks.
I want to go back to like little Danielle when you are excelling in school. And that is what you take me back to that person and explain to me how that person ends up here. Like, what were you like as a kid? Because I feel like you're studious with glasses on and a book in a corner.
I was 1,000%. I mean, I can go back and show you photos of like me as a kid. You know, I have absolutely terrible vision. Like, do you wear glasses or contacts?
I do.
Okay, so how bad's your vision?
I mean, it's getting a lot worse. I mean, it's bad enough to get LASIK for sure.
Okay, so
I can
you're
see
probably
without
like
glasses,
-3-ish if you put your contacts in. Do you know what it says on there? Minus whatever?
No, I don't wear contacts.
Oh.
I can't things in my eyeballs scare me.
I get it.
Yeah.
So people sometimes
Are you like blind as a bat?
People will be like, oh, I have terrible vision. I have -4, -4.5. My eyes are -9. And probably
how bad,
even worse.
What is blind?
I don't know. I actually don't know what blind is, but my vision is terrible, absolutely terrible. Like truly, I'm not even a candidate for LASIK because my vision's so bad that my eye is actually so thin that it's too risky. It can't be done on me.
Like they would just have to take them out and put new ones in.
Yeah. Like, no, my vision's terrible. So yes,
Really?
and purple's my favorite color. So you know, 20 years ago, there weren't a lot of options for glasses. So I always had these like giant purple plastic frames. So yes, I was always that kid, like total bookworm. But it's funny, my birthday is in September. So technically I should have been held.
You're on the line, right?
Yes. And my parents really fought for me to start when I was like technically 2 weeks or whatever, 3 weeks too young to start school. So I was always tiny and nerdy and small, and that's just who I was. And always very academic. But also very shy. And so my family moved every 2 years growing up. And at some point we were moving again. And again, I was painfully shy. I have a younger sister who was the opposite. She was very outgoing. And she was ironically called Miss Hollywood from a young age by one of our teachers. And I was the opposite. And then when I was probably 10 years old, my parents allowed us to do community theater. And, you know, for my sister, it was like a perfect match. And for me, it was a chance to get out of my shell. And I loved it. I love theater. You know, I know I love the craft of acting, of, you know, in some way it's the insecurities and it's like getting to be someone else who doesn't have your own stuff. So yes, I was total bookworm, total nerd, who also loves theater. So then I just became a theater nerd.
Why did you guys move around so much?
My dad worked in sales.
Okay.
And he was just constantly, you know, I think they were promotions and like new territories and things like that.
Yeah.
So every 2 years.
I am so intrigued by this because my daughter is incredibly smart.
It's funny how early you see it and you're like, oh.
All she wants to do is sit in a corner and read books. That's all she wants to do. And her favorite color is also purple.
Way.
Really?
Oh, really?
I
love purple.
Yeah, it's her favorite color. Okay, so you move around, and is that how you ended up in California? Did you end up here because your father was moved here, or you chose to come here?
We ended up in California because my sister and I were acting. So we started acting in a suburb of Atlanta, Georgia, like started doing community theater and like maybe did a couple commercials. And then my dad got transferred from Atlanta to Chicago, and we moved to Chicago. And when we moved to Chicago, the agency that had represented us in Atlanta knew an agency in LA that also had a branch in Chicago. Mm-hmm. So that's how we got connected with an agency in Chicago. But you know, there's commercials here and there, but there's not a ton of work. And we were in Chicago, again, continuing to do theater. I did more local theater. My sister did Chicago Shakespeare Theater. So it was something that we were still doing. And at some point someone said, you know, you should really go to LA and try and make a go of it. And at the time, my mom didn't drive on freeways. And if you know anything about Los Angeles, it's sort of impossible to get anywhere in Los Angeles
without a freeway.
Yeah. So my family came out for like a week in December just to try it, to see if it was something that we could do for a pilot season, because, oh gosh, this was 20 years ago. That's what you did, was you came out for pilot season. Yeah. And so my family came out for a week in December. And in that week, my sister booked a movie. She booked a movie that was filming in Vancouver, actually. Stay at the Sutton Place, as everyone does and has forever.
I have stayed in every room at the Sutton Place.
I know.
Yeah.
It's I think most of us are very familiar.
Oh, the stories that hotel could tell.
It's true.
Oh my
that
Lord.
Hotel bar.
Oh my God.
So my sister did that movie. They went and filmed for like maybe 6 weeks, January, February in Vancouver. And then we came back as a family to LA for a few weeks, not very long, because I was in my freshman year in high school in Chicago at a great public high school in Neuqua Valley. And, you know, on track to like start doing AP classes my sophomore year in high school and things like that. And we had a couple weeks, and also it's very expensive, like especially now as a parent, like you look at the expense of
California.
Yes. You know, you have a home and a life in Chicago, and then you're also going to tack on being in Los Angeles, renting a car, staying in a hotel, you know, not necessarily having a fridge and a kitchen to be able to cook. And so there was a finite period of time we were out here. I want to say it was 6 weeks, but it was probably shorter. And by the end of those 6 weeks, both my sister and I had booked pilots.
Amazing.
Mine didn't go, but hers did. And that was enough of an impetus to move
Convince
our
the family to come.
To California.
For those of you that don't know what a pilot is, what pilot season, when network television was the only thing, networks would do a certain number of pilots, which are the first episode of every TV show. And they would pay to do the first episode of multiple TV shows. And then they would watch those first episodes, 100, tons of them. They would watch those first episodes of all those shows and determine which ones they actually liked enough to green light them and purchase an entire season. And out of most pilot seasons, I don't know, something like 15 to 20, something like that would get picked up.
Yeah, not a lot.
Of all the networks. So there were a lot of failed pilots, like a lot of failed pilots. But to book a pilot as a young actor was vital to your career. You had to book pilots. And so that's great that you guys both booked. And hers got picked up and yours didn't.
Yes. And my sister did a show, I think for 2 years, called Summerland. I think it was one of Aaron Spelling's last shows.
Okay.
And then I ended up that year doing a mini series for HBO called Empire Falls. So I was still, the pilot didn't go, but thank goodness it didn't, because that was a pivotal moment in my career.
Well, Empire Falls was back when networks were still doing miniseries events, which were wonderful.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
And it was HBO too.
HBO was like phenomenal and still is phenomenal. Like there's, certain networks you want to work with. HBO has never faltered.
Yes,
they've always been one of the ones that's producing phenomenal content.
Yeah.
And Empire Falls was one of those shows. And great cast.
Unbelievable. And, this is another interesting fact about me. My parents didn't let us watch television growing up. So I'm going onto the set with Paul Newman, Joanne Woodward, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Robin Wright, Ed Harris, like just the list is absolutely incredible. And having pretty much no idea
who any of them are.
Yeah. And even at the time I was 15 or 16 and my parents wouldn't let me watch rated R movies. So like finding PG-13 movies where I could learn who these incredible actors were was a challenge.
It was hard. Yeah. Well, especially back then too, because the credentials for an R movie were not that hard.
Yes. Because I think PG-13 was something that came along later. So, a lot of Paul Newman's earlier work, if you're looking at either giving it a PG or an R, you probably are going to have to give it an R.
Well, because what was it? It's something like, at least back in the day, it was like, if there's one fuck, it's an R movie.
Or any, violence or nudity, you know what I mean? It just like tips it over the edge really fast.
Yeah, it really does. Okay, so you work with these amazing people. Do you have any memories from that? Like, were there any lessons you learned on that film from all those amazing people?
Oh, so many lessons from everyone. Everyone was so generous with me. Like that is the thing. Ed in particular, he's a method actor, which I'd never really, I'd barely worked at that point. Yeah. And he played my father in the film. And he was so, thank God he played my father, because it might have been a different experience if
now we'd play your husband.
If we hadn't, but also like if he hadn't meant to be warm with me, like, he.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, being method, of course. You might have never
it could have been
the
intense.
Real
yes.
Paul.
But he was wonderful, and I just have different memories. Again, I was so young, and we did these table reads in New York before we went to film in Maine, and Paul Newman showed up with like a big box of his cookies, and I was like, this guy's great. He's got cookies. And just to watch them work and rehearse, it was, I don't know that films are necessarily given the space to rehearse and things like that. Like, even if we didn't have access to the space, the production designer would go into a big empty space and like using tape on the floor, be like, and this is where I remember rehearsing in the kitchen of the restaurant that's in Empire Falls. And we didn't have access to the actual set. So like they drew everything out on the floor so we could rehearse and try things because, as on the day, time is money. And so you don't necessarily
especially when you're shooting on film.
Yes. So you don't always have as much opportunity to play and to get to watch them work and get to try things out and just observe was magical.
What was it like working with Philip Seymour Hoffman?
I didn't work with him.
No.
He and Robin Wright played I I think they played my grandparents, but in the past.
Right.
So I got
okay.
to meet them, but like,
Yeah.
you know, got to meet Philip Seymour Hoffman. And like, you know, it was funny. I remember he rapped on a Friday and I was there. I think I was filming a scene before or after he was. And he said to me, he was like, you don't ever want to rap on a Friday because the crew is excited it's the Friday and they're on their way out. And so no, you don't get to say a proper goodbye.
It's true. It's true.
Which is one of the things I remember most about him. And I also remember, you know, Robin Wright being also a real pro and a perfectionist. Like she's
one of my idols.
It was.
I've never had the pleasure to meet her.
I met her and like got to see her do a scene, and she was then so focused and so committed. And yeah.
We share the same birthday, so I feel like maybe we're meant to like
kismet.
meet.
Yeah.
Yeah, or at least it feels something like that. She's just so talented.
So talented.
Yeah, absolutely. And professional, like you said. I
and
mean,
that is the thing. I mean, and that's that was my first job. And everyone in every department was helpful to me and teaching me. You know, I remember there's a scene where I think I'm eating crackers. I'm supposed to be like playing with my dinner and not eating it. And it's like saltine crackers that I was given as a prop. And the sound guy came over and was like, so when you play with the crackers on top of your line, we can't hear your line, which is not something you think of as an actor. Like you're, you know, focused on being natural and in the moment and like whatever you're doing. But then it's like, oh, if I make that choice over my line, like that doesn't actually work for the project. So everyone was incredibly generous with me.
Those are phenomenal lessons to learn though from a very young age. You know, I got to be on set when I did Max Bickford with Richard Dreyfuss and Marcia Gay Harden and Peter O'Toole and like these amazing actors. To see professionalism instilled in these people and to be around that in my early 20s set the stage for me to learn and take that on to other jobs. Yeah. And then subsequently, the same is true for bad behavior. You know, I'm sure you've worked with people that come to work and are not necessarily the easiest. I've worked with someone who was so late to work that we would literally finish our side of scenes. Yeah. And then he would show up and rewrite his side, and then our side didn't make sense anymore. I have learned what not to do on set by being observant. Is it the same for you?
Absolutely. And it's so frustrating. And again, like that projects like Empire Falls, and I had, you know, acting teachers who taught me things like that, you know, how to be on set. And, you know, I think it's Michael Caine who actually has a great book for like first time actors, you know, things like that. That was how I was trained, and, you know, and is still a value I have. And it is frustrating when other people don't have that same value. But, you know, I think that's going to work. Like when you go to work, not everyone has the same work ethic and value you do and takes their job as seriously. So, you know, whether it's, you know, in an office space or whatever, like you just got to try and make it work. And I think that was one of my big lessons on Flash too, was over the many years and all the different people who were coming and going, is learning how to protect yourself in a way that makes it possible for you to do your work as best you can in the environment you're working.
How do you combat that though and still be creative? Because when you are acting, you have to feel supported in order to feel uninhibited. So it is difficult. How do you?
It is difficult, but like honestly, I don't think you always get that, and particularly again on Flash where you're moving so fast, you just kind of have to focus and let everything else go and as best you can and do the best you can. And you know what I mean? Focus on you and what you can control. And it's like a little bit of compartmentalizing and knowing like this is shitty and I'm going to be upset about it, but I'm going to be upset about it later. Yeah. And right now I'm here to do a job and I'm going to focus and do my job to the best I can. And then, you know, when I'm off work, I'm going to vent to my husband or a girlfriend or whatever and deal with it in a healthy way.
I think that's one of the things that I said, like we bonded off the top, because I think that, you know, I've had the pleasure of working with phenomenal people, and I've also had the misfortune of working with people that are incredibly difficult. But at the same time, I think the lessons learned from both are just as vital. Yes. And there are times when I have come to work and and not been supported and done my best work.
Yeah.
And it's crazy.
And it's also interesting too, because it's an interesting lesson of, you know, sometimes what works for us doesn't work for someone else, and trying not to take it personally too. Like, you know, there are days when I want to sit at the chairs and hang out and be chatty and whatever. And then there are other days where I know I have an emotional scene coming up and I need to be in a specific space and I can't sit at the chairs and socialize, and I need to be, you know, in my trailer with my headphones in or whatever, and just, you know, allowing yourself the opportunity to do that. But it's also okay. I'm an over communicator in terms of, I mean, pretty much everything. And, you know, sometimes I will preface it by being like, hey, I'm stressed about this scene later. So if I'm off today, if I'm grumpy, if I'm not responding, like, it's me. It's because I'm worried about this scene. It's not you. It's not anything you did. Because also I think that's respectful, because I wish people would do that with me too. You know what I mean?
Right. And let you know that what they're bringing to the day has absolutely nothing to do with you. Absolutely. When you did your arc on Arrow, did you have any idea that the show Flash was already in Berlanti's mind?
Yes. So I was actually hired for Flash first. So I think the way it worked is initially they were planning to do Flash as a planted spinoff, as like a full Arrow episode. And they weren't actually going to give it its own pilot.
Okay.
And then I think they wrote the script, and I think the studio was really happy with the script, and they decided to give it its own pilot. And when they decided to give it its own pilot, they cast everyone, you know, it was very early. I think I was hired in January. So it was early on in pilot season. So they were getting everything rolling, and they hired me for the pilot. And Greg called me, and Greg Berlanti.
Yeah.
He said, I also have this idea. I want to introduce your character, and the Cisco character on an episode of Arrow. So we were hired for the pilot, and then Arrow was an extra thing.
Right. He wanted to sort of like...
Yeah, because Grant had already guest starred in 2 episodes of Arrow earlier in the season.
And was his deal the same as well? Like, did they know that he was already in the Flash
a
show?
Yeah, when they hired him thinking he would play the Flash, but in a planted spinoff in an episode of Arrow. And then they changed their minds and decided to do a pilot.
Okay. Now, was there ever any talk, because the show Flash was before the movie Flash started existing in like Snyderverse. Was there ever any talk at all of you guys existing in a multiverse world, especially with the new Flash just come out with all these different characters making an appearance, because your show was so successful?
Not to my knowledge. I will say that was something that was definitely surprising, and I think hurtful to some people, because our show premiered, I want to say October of 2014, and was a hit.
Yeah.
And it took the studio 2 weeks to announce that they were also doing a Flash movie.
Yeah.
So that timing was a little surprising.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You know. And I
not
think
personal.
Not personal.
No, just business.
Yes.
But it does hurt, you know? Absolutely. There are definitely moments with all of these TV show, movie worlds existing and different platforms where you find out that you are not part of something else, and that they're keeping a separation to it. When Warner Brothers was one of the first studios to acknowledge that, in my recollection back in the day, that a television actor was not just a television actor, that they translated into film as well. So I was surprised as well that I didn't see, when I just watched the Flash movie, that I didn't see some sort of that. And disappointed, because I love your show, and the fans are so loyal.
Yes, they are, for sure.
Yeah, and there's room for everyone. I've always felt that.
I do too. I think there is room for everyone. I haven't seen the movie, so I can't opine on that. But to the best of my, I mean, no one ever approached me about it. I don't know if anyone.
You guys would have made it better.
Thanks.
Did you when you signed up for the show, because you've been doing this a long time, did you think that it would go as long as it did?
No. Speaking of pilots and like, you know, again, I had done pilots before that hadn't gone. Like they make all these pilots. Some of them get picked up.
Yeah.
Some of them actually make it on television because sometimes you do a pilot that gets picked up. They shoot 6 episodes. The studio decides they don't really like it that much.
Yeah, I've done that multiple times.
You know what I mean? Just the odds. The odds are not in your favor that a pilot you do is going to be a success.
Yeah.
I loved our show and really believed in it. But, you know, I remember filming the pilot and some of the cast like going out and looking for apartments. And I was like, guys.
Way too soon, guys.
Yeah. Too soon.
What are you doing?
You don't know that we're going to get picked up. You don't know that, you know what I mean? Like, you just don't know. We hope.
Yeah.
But you don't know.
Yeah.
And so I was wrong. I probably should have been looking for an apartment. Probably should have bought.
I should have bought.
Yeah. No, had no idea.
Yeah. You know, I did the same thing with Battlestar. I think that when you're in this business a long time,
yes,
you get just the right amount of jaded.
Yeah, you
to
have
save
to
your
protect
money.
yourself.
You have to. It's the reason why you hear of these actors like losing houses and they seem like movie stars to you, and you're like, how'd that happen? And I think there's a misconception, and I've talked about this a lot on this podcast. There's a misconception that every actor is like some millionaire and like has a private plane. It drives me crazy that people think that every actor is like loaded.
Absolutely.
Yes. Do we get paid very well at the time? 100%. We take home a fifth of that.
Well,
after we pay
sometimes
everybody.
you get paid really well at the beginning.
Sometimes. Depends on who you work with.
Yeah.
It's true. But you also, that's why booking pilots in the beginning of your career are so important, because every pilot you book that doesn't get picked up, you take a quote of what you were getting paid for that pilot, and subsequently you would take that quote to the next pilot. So if you're someone who's done 10 pilots back to back and none of them have been picked up, and you're going against someone like me who's had the terrible misfortune of doing one pilot and then it goes for 5 years, you're making more money on paper than I am.
Well, that's changed.
It's changed now because quotes don't exist. Well, they're not
it's
allowed
a
to exist
system,
anymore.
Yeah.
But for a long time, I would show up at work and be making like so much less money than somebody else.
It was a messed up system.
Because they came in season 3 and negotiated this massive contract. And I'm sitting here on some stupid contract from like 2001 going like, wait, what?
I mean, it happened on Flash.
Oh my God, all the time. All the time. When we met on Flash, it was the middle.
Season 3 or 4? I was thinking about that this morning.
I think it was 4.
I think it was 4 too.
I think
which
it was
I think
4.
was our. Well, I think for me was probably my most challenging season.
It was a challenging season. I remember it was a challenging season for you, and I remember coming into that.
It was a challenging season, yes, for me, but also for the show as a whole, because our showrunner was let go sort of halfway through the season, and
which is where I sort of I popped into, because I was a hire from him.
Right.
He hired me.
Right.
And I showed up at work having had all these discussions about what I was going to do with the character, and then showed up
and
with
those things weren't communicated.
And the director literally looked at me like I was a crazy person because I wanted to do this accent that was pre-discussed. Like this was what the character was going to be. And I remember that she really didn't want me to do it. And I was terrified. I went to my trailer and I took a breath and I said, I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to do what I want to do.
Because also that's what you were hired for. You know, that's, I mean, that was definitely a frustration on that show and in other work environments as well. But I felt it a lot on Flash, you know, just the disconnect between the writer's room and everyone in LA, the writer's room, the studio, the network, everyone having opinions in LA, and what was actually getting communicated to us on the ground in Vancouver.
Absolutely.
And we didn't have, you know, you and I were talking briefly before that, you know, on a show you worked on recently, like one of the executive producers was there every day and like setting the tone. And we definitely did not have that. Like we really would have benefited from a leader on our show from the very beginning. We didn't have that.
When I showed up and did that accent, I mean, I have to ask, were you like, what the fuck is she doing?
No, because to me, that was always the beauty of Flash, is it was like, that to me was the appeal for someone like yourself coming in, is it is a superhero show. Like, you are not coming in and necessarily playing a real character. Like, there is an element of fantasy and make-believe. And, that to me was the appeal of like, people like Mark Hamill coming. Like you get to come and play and be ridiculous.
Yeah. And ridiculous is what I leaned into.
And like, I think that's how we got such great people.
Yeah.
And I think that I think the show benefited from that too. And it also allowed, the regulars and, people like Grant to be really grounded on opposite that. Like, because you can have a really grounded Flash, because he is so grounded, you can have the other characters getting really big. Like, it's fun.
Yeah.
I loved it.
I had so much fun. Till this day, when people ask me what show I had the most fun doing, what character in my entire career, I always say that character.
And you got to have so much fun creating the look for her too, with the lashes and everything.
Oh, it was nuts. We had so much fun in that room, in the makeup trailer, just being like trying to figure out what's the craziest thing we could put on my face and see if it'll work.
Because they're superheroes. They're not grounded in reality. Like,
you can do whatever you want.
Exactly.
So I want to talk about season 5, I think it was, that you had your first baby, right?
Season 5 was the first time I directed, which is where I thought you were going with that.
Oh, okay. Well, I want to get to that, but okay.
And then I was pregnant for all of season 6.
Okay, so directing came first.
Yes, directing came first.
How did that come about? And have you always had desires to direct?
No, I have not always had desires to direct. But to go back to Empire Falls and how kind and generous everyone was with me on that project, the director as well was incredibly generous. A guy named Fred Skepsey, Australian director. I would love to work with him again in a heartbeat. But, he was editing on the weekends. And he, again, generous with me on set and teaching and showing me things. And then he would edit on weekends and he would let me come watch him edit.
How old were you? Sorry to interrupt.
16.
16 years old.
16.
So very young.
Yeah, really young.
Wonderful.
And again, like, I just learned so much.
Yeah.
And
he's editing on the weekends, you said, and he would let you come.
And watch it. And it's like, again, you start to learn just different nuances about things and, how a performance reads differently in a wide versus a close-up and things like that. And just understanding, as actors who studied, it's a lot about the craft and the process. And I think that's so important. But it was on Empire Falls that I realized that that's just one piece of the puzzle. And that was something I really carried with me throughout my career. I remember working on a movie called Sky High, and the executive producer, Andrew Gunn, at some point he met Fred. I can't remember well, but had said to Fred, like, she learned so much. Like, she came to set with so much knowledge. And again, I'm 16, 17 at the time, just from that experience on Empire Falls. So, I think I've always, as you are too, been aware of this is a production. Like, this is not a one-woman show, and
Absolutely.
There's a lot of things going on. And so I'd always paid attention. And in season 3, Tom Cavanaugh directed for the first time. And I watched him direct. And that was the first time it occurred to me. I was like, oh, I could do this. And it interests me. And there was something about, in particular, Flash and, directing a television show for the first time, when you're directing an episode of a show, particularly a show that's doing 23 episodes at a time, there is it's a moving train and you got to get on, and you can make good choices, you can make bad choices, but directing an episode of The Flash started to seem more manageable and it seemed like something that I could do. And, being on Flash, being in Vancouver, away from home so many months a year could get frustrating at times. And I decided to make the most of my time and just start showing up. And I didn't take no for an answer. And I think, I say this with love, but like JP Finn, our line producer, I think he was not so thrilled to see me in all of the meetings I just kept showing up to and learning. And, in particular, learning about the visual effects on Flash and how much something like that can dictate the show. And again, because we're working with a finite budget and, just the things that worked well and didn't work well. So I started just showing up and paying attention and trying to learn, and then expressed interest. And Greg Berlanti was actually, he and I had lunch at some point, I think at some point in season 4 when we were trying to talk about like my future on the show and what that looked like. he said to me, he was like, have you ever thought about directing? And I said, I didn't until I saw Tom do it, but I'm interested. And he was like, great, then you'll direct next season. And Greg and Todd Helbing, our showrunner in season 5, like really made that happen, really supported me. And I am eternally grateful to them for that.
Yeah, no, for sure. What was the most surprising thing from directing that you learned or that you witnessed?
I mean, that's the thing about directing is it's like I'm a bit of a control freak and I'm always super prepared. And no matter how prepared you are, you can never predict how the day is going to go. Like you just don't know. And it's being able to pivot constantly.
Yeah. Interesting. You know, I have always said that I never wanted to direct because I find actors to be children. And it's like wrangling kittens.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I could do that. I'd probably be that director that like threw something across the room.
I know you wouldn't. Like, you want to,
yeah.
But it's the same thing you do with your kids where you take a deep breath and you find a different way to communicate with them that's going to land with them. I mean, that is a lot of directing too, is it's learning to work with people and get the best out of them and knowing that everybody needs something different. And like, that's the benefit I had from being on Flash for so long is I know how to talk to every actor who's a series regular differently. And I know how to talk to, you know, our DP and our camera operator. And, you know, I have the benefit of knowing the best way to communicate with them to hopefully get the best work from them.
Because you've been there for so long.
Yes.
And you directed 2 episodes.
5
oh my
episodes.
God, 5?
I was like, I can't remember. I know it was more than 2. Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah. Every
That's
season
amazing.
after season 5. Yeah, it was great. I learned a lot every time I directed. You know, and again, every season had its own challenges. Season 5 was the first time I directed. In season 6, I was pregnant and throwing up every day and wasn't telling anyone. I hadn't told anyone I was pregnant.
You
so like,
told them you were hungover.
Yeah, I just was like trying to push through. And then season 7 was the first COVID year, so we were trying to do 10-hour days.
Yeah.
And then season 8, I had a bottle episode, which, you know, has its own challenges.
Yeah.
And season 9, I'm really proud of the episode I directed in season 9. I felt like it was a good way to go out.
Yeah. I love that. Have you discussed directing something else now?
I would love to. And Warner Brothers has been very supportive. You know, I did their directing program before I directed the first time. And,
What's the directing program?
Most studios have a first-time directors program. Well, I mean, I don't know how people are spending money anymore.
Yeah.
But it was something where which makes sense too. Like
Makes
to
complete
give
sense.
a class and run by directors, experienced television directors, and just to sort of go through it. And I think every studio has a different kind and every studio does it differently. When I did the Warner Brothers directing program in 2018, I want to say, it was like every Saturday for 12 weeks. And I mean, I think the last 2 or 3 classes, I'd gone back to work in Vancouver and was flying back to LA to finish the classes.
Because you can't miss?
You can, but that's not who
advisable,
I am.
of
well,
course.
That's not who I am.
Exactly.
I think some people did.
You push up those purple glasses and
yes,
you just
exactly.
you show up on a Saturday.
And, you know, it just go through all the different aspects of it. And, you know, a lot of it I knew, but I got great skills and skills that I'm hoping I can't wait to direct something else. And, and you know, I think it'll have a different set of challenges for sure.
I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's, you know, I think what a wonderful place to start directing in such a familiar setting with all of those people that are there to support.
Yes. Full stop, yes. There were people who were there to support. It's also challenging to work with people who you know you're not going to be in this position with next week. So you can only push so far.
True.
Whereas
Absolutely.
a director who's coming in and is in for 2 weeks and, you know, has their mindset on this shot and they don't care if you hate them because in 2 weeks you never have to see them again.
Yeah.
You know, I can only push so far.
So you had that conscious in your head as you were having conversations and knowing that like, I want to go this far, but I also have to understand that in 2 weeks I'm going to be.
I don't know if it was conscious, but it's just, you know, there's good and bad in everything.
Of course.
You know, that was something that I was also dealing with.
Yeah. So let's talk about pregnancy.
Let's.
So was your first pregnancy planned?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So planned. So you
Yes.
like, and was it an easy,
I don't know.
Did you get pregnant quickly? Was it the timing, everything? Like,
I mean, so much. I mean, you know how it goes when you want to start a family. Like, so again, for a self-proclaimed control freak, so much of it is out of your control, which is hard. I was really sick, as I said, which, you know, I think my body, like I just have a sensitive body. Like I barely drink coffee because caffeine hits me. It is who I am. And I was very sick actually in both of my pregnancies. And, you know, it was hard, and it was hard working those hours, and, you know, also being pregnant and away from home because my husband's here.
Lives here.
Yeah, he's here. And for the first 6 years, one of us was on a plane pretty much every weekend. I would try and come down.
Though? So you flew back and forth as much as possible.
Yes, because again, I was like, you never know who's watching this show. Like, I didn't give up. I owned a condo here. I didn't sell it. You just don't know what's going to happen. And so I had my home here and my friends here. And so I would go up to work and then I'd come home, and it was something for the first 6 years of the show. And the only thing that changed it was COVID. Yeah. That was really important, was for me to be able to come back. So I would come back all the time. If I had a 3-day weekend, like if I had a Friday or a Monday off, I would come home.
Yeah.
And in later seasons, they got better at trying to schedule that for me, just so I could, have a chance at having a life.
Yeah. Is that something that when you guys got married, do you think it's helpful that he's in the industry because he understands that? Is that something that you bonded over?
Yes. I think it's helpful that he's in the industry because he does understand it and he doesn't take it personally, and he knows, that like when I say I'm still at work at 2:00 on a Thursday morning / Wednesday night, like I really am, you know what I mean? Like I fell and hit my head in season 2 of The Flash. And I remember being in the emergency room and telling the doctor what had happened. Oh, my roommate, he came home from work at 4:00 in the morning. And the doctor was like, what does your roommate do? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what kind of business are you girls in? So
in Vancouver, you never know.
Exactly. So yes, Hayes has always understood, but he's always been, incredibly supportive. Like, he's the best. So yes, he understands, but he also has been like really flexible. Like, he has always been willing to get on a plane if that's what it takes for us to be together, which I think made a big difference.
Well, you have to have that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to, if you're going to make a long distance, because that is what it is.
Yeah.
When you're working in another country.
Yeah.
Whether it's 2.5 hours or not.
Yeah.
You have to be in a relationship where both people are compromising and making it work. If one person is pulling the slack, it's never going to work.
Nope.
And
I remember making other compromises, like, being out to dinner with friends in Vancouver and being like, okay, I have to go home now because I'm going to FaceTime Hayes before he goes to bed, because like my relationship is a priority for me. And if you don't put the work and energy into it, like, how do you expect things to stay?
It's true. It's I do that now still. I walk away from a dinner table to have a FaceTime. You have to do that to make a relationship work in our business. Yeah. Okay, so you're sick on set. No one knows you're sick.
It was brutal.
How and why did you hide that pregnancy? Like, did you hide it because of the first 12 weeks and you just didn't want to tell people, or did you just not want to tell people?
A variety of reasons. I think I was surprised in my pregnancy. There's a series, you have big test at like 11 weeks. And then there's another, and I thought, okay, by the time I get to that test, I'll feel better and like less nervous about this pregnancy and whatever. Cause obviously, like we all have, I've had friends who struggled to get pregnant, struggled to stay pregnant, things like that. So you never know. And even when we got, all the positive test results back from that like 11-week scan, so funny. I remember, there's that special doctor that you go to in LA here for it.
The MFM, the maternal fetal medicine
something
doctor.
Like that.
MFM, yeah.
But I was prepping to direct, and it was only the second episode I directed. And I think it was like a day before prep. It was like a big casting call or something like that. And I I wasn't on set and I had to get that doctor's appointment in before I actually started directing.
Yeah.
So I flew down and I'm like in the hallway of like sitting outside that doctor's office early trying to take this call and like putting it on mute so that no one knows where I am.
You're like, and they're like, and this is going to hurt when we push right here.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's funny. I hadn't thought about that. So kept it. And I did want to keep it a secret while I was directing because I have heard stories of, you know, studios or insurance people or whatever getting nervous about women being pregnant and wanting to have a backup or something. So I was nervous that they would take away the opportunity because I was pregnant.
Listen, you know, I've never told this story, but I remember sitting at a table with an executive from a studio, which I will not name. And when we had the discussion, when we were talking about me starting a family, and I expressed that I, for medical reasons, cannot carry children, he told me that that was a good thing for my career because they wouldn't have to worry about losing me. And I remember sitting there, I'm getting like anxiety even saying it out loud. I remember sitting there thinking to myself, I can't believe that you just said that me not being able to carry my own children is a fucking good thing.
I'm sorry that
I
happened.
was like appalled. But then I rationalized it when I got out of there. And I was like, you know what? I guess it is a good thing. That makes me a really great, successful lead of a show if they don't lose me because I get knocked up. Like, it was really hard. I went home and I told my husband and I was like, I can't believe that someone just said this to my face as if that's acceptable to say to someone. So the fact that you kept it a secret, I completely understand that.
Thanks.
Because you never know what someone's going to hold against you. You know, they still think that women who carry babies are you know, that in some way a liability or a risk or an emotional basket case or something like that. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
So
what was being pregnant at work like? Because you're away from Hayes, obviously.
Not great.
So you're by yourself. Like I can't imagine.
Yeah. I'll be honest. I didn't love being pregnant. Like that was just, you know.
Yeah.
Some women do. It wasn't my favorite. It's like a tiny alien is inside your body and has taken over. And
I've decided that's one of my silver linings to not being able to carry. I see what people go through, and I'm like, I am. Whew.
And some people love it, and that's great for them.
Yeah.
That was not my experience.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was tough. I mean, I hid it for a long time. And, you know, I was sick with both my kids and just like getting up in the morning and like trying to get food in my stomach and knowing that the minute I brushed my teeth, it was probably going to come right back up again. Like,
no.
You know, it was a challenge. And then a bit of a relief when I told people, you know, again, everybody has different reactions and things like that. And, you know, it's also one of those things that like, word spreads quickly and sometimes faster than I was prepared for. So, you know, we went through the season and my first pregnancy, I mean, I started to have a little belly, but I remember the difference between, you know, we filmed the first 2 or 3 weeks in December and then everybody goes away for a 2-week break and then you come back in January. And the difference in that episode, I can't remember what episode it was, but the difference between like before we went on break and after we went on break, it was like, oh, she's pretty pregnant now.
I've heard the difference with pregnant people, like pregnant women, like in the difference between the morning and the night is like,
oh yeah.
What, did you eat a whole cake? Like it just
you
like pops.
Never know. And the same thing, like first pregnancy, second pregnancy, like first pregnancy through about 20 weeks, I feel like I did a pretty decent job. Yeah.
When did you tell people?
Probably closer to 15 or 16 weeks with my first kid. And then with my second kid, it was showing.
It was like 2 weeks in. You're like, well.
I didn't. I mean, again, kept it a secret for a while.
Yeah.
For a while.
Yeah. What was childbirth like? I'm always so intrigued by people's experience because I didn't experience it. I saw it in the room, but I didn't experience it. I'm glad you
could be there.
It was wonderful. With COVID, we were told that there was a very good chance we wouldn't be able to get in there.
So scary.
Then we were told that only one of us. Oh. Then we were told, you both can come in. You're going to have your own room. if there's a C-section, neither one of you can come in. And we were like, okay, we understand, because we are not her support system.
Yeah.
So for our surrogate, if that happens, unequivocally, we would want her partner with her. It shouldn't be us.
Yeah.
But we got to be there. It was, I remember, like, you know, our surrogate was not like very touchy. Come to know her now, she's incredibly touchy, and I could have been touching her a million times, but I never felt her belly. I never felt like I could. I felt like I was very protective of her space, and like knowing that like that's her body, and like so I didn't do it. And then our daughter was born, and she's like, we cut the cord and the whole thing. And I remember, like, as they're wheeling our daughter out of the room with my husband and I, and she still has another big push to get out the placenta. Her legs are in the stirrups. I dove on her like a fucking crazy person. Her legs are in the stirrups. Our daughter's being wheeled out of the room. I dive on this woman, and I'm bawling and just like hugging her, and then she's crying, and the doctors are like, you're gonna have to put so I was like, I'll leave you alone. But I just like being in the room was such a wonderful thing. So what was,
I mean, with both my kids, it's magical. Like, it's, you know, it is sort of out of body, or I think it was for me. Like, you just can't believe that this is happening. But it's magical. I think I feel that way about parenthood in general. Yes, it's exhausting, but it's magical.
It really is. It really is. It's how did you handle being pregnant and then also having a young child, and then also working and directing and having Hayes being here in Los Angeles? I mean, that is...
Well, COVID changed a lot of that.
Yeah.
So my oldest was born in 2020, and we went to Vancouver in July or August of 2020 because we were supposed to start filming in September of 2020. But we were terrified, and it really, you know, I think it really COVID shaped my postpartum experience, because just so scared of everything, scared to go outside. You know, in the beginning when no one knew anything.
Of course.
Scared to go outside. And we didn't see anyone for a very long time.
Yeah.
And that was really hard. No family came to visit. No one held our kids, our oldest, in the early days. So, and we didn't really have support, and that was very hard, just because, as you know, when you bring a new baby home, everything changes.
I ignorantly thought that I would just strap that baby to my body and life would just go
on.
Oh my God.
Maybe we all don't
think
that
so.
way. Yeah, it's like, cool, now I got a buddy. I go everywhere together.
Just a buddy. It's like, I'll strap the dog on the back and the baby on the front, and I'll just do what I do.
Yeah.
No. Not at all. Not at all. What was the biggest thing that changed that you were surprised with having children?
I feel like it's almost impossible to say, because I don't know that there's a facet of my life that hasn't been changed.
Yeah.
You know, it's cliche to say that your priorities change, but the things that are important are different all of a sudden. Yeah. And the things that were important before I was a mom are still important to me, but there's just like other factors. So, you know, we went to Vancouver, and that was the thing. I don't know if you were in Vancouver.
We were in Vancouver
in 2020.
We were one of the first shows that was up and running in COVID. I think that we went back to work. I don't even remember. September?
Yeah, that's when we went back.
Yeah, it was. I think there was.
We were
one
supposed
show,
to be early September, and it kept getting pushed back.
Kept getting pushed, and then it was sort of one of those things where, okay, it's this week.
Yes.
No, it's not this week.
Well, because I don't know if you guys experienced this too, but like the testing. Once everybody came to Vancouver to work, and then they couldn't test people fast enough. Like they weren't getting the results fast enough.
The testing drove me so nuts, and the thing that I, as a producer on that show, was a stickler. I wanted everyone to be safe because I wanted to get home.
Yes.
We had to finish filming. And if we didn't finish filming because somebody got sick and we had to go down, or for whatever reason, me getting home was getting pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And we had to get home. Like, that's what I wanted. And so when someone in the cast tests positive, and you know damn well that they were at, a Halloween party in downtown Vancouver, but they're not copping to it, and you're not allowed to know that they've tested positive because you're going to discriminate against them. I felt like I want to discriminate against them. I know that they were at a Halloween party. Like, we should be knowing, like, people should know that you are not taking this seriously and are going out and getting sick when livelihoods are on the line.
Lives are on the line.
People's work is work, life. You have no idea. And I was so frustrated during that time. But we had, one cast member, I think, test positive, but we made it through. Amazing. It was amazing. I think people were scared of me.
I will say, having filmed, all the way up and past when I think SAG had lifted all the restrictions, people were scared of me too. Like, I think people didn't need to be wearing masks anymore, but they knew how seriously I and my family took it, that they kept wearing them around me, like, out of respect for me, for which I am extraordinarily grateful.
Me
too.
That.
I think true. I relate.
Yeah, I get it. My daughter was dealing with some health issues, and I wouldn't take that mask off forever until we got the green light from our doctor or her doctor to do so. So I completely understand that.
Yeah.
What kind of
But the borders were closed.
Borders were closed.
Which was such a hard thing for us. We went up, whatever it was, July or August of 2020, and no one could get in. So
did Hayes come with
family. So he came with me.
Okay, and he worked remotely.
Yeah, he worked remotely. I don't think he expected to be working remotely as long as he was.
I don't think anybody expected to be working remotely as long as we did.
He might get mad at me for telling this story, but, we pack everything up, and, I pack for the whole season because I'm like, well, that's it. Like, I don't think I'm getting back for the rest of this season.
Yeah.
And, all my stuff, all the baby stuff, which, as you know, is a lot.
Yeah.
And at some point, it's October in Vancouver and it's torrential rain outside. And Hayes is walking the dog in flip-flops because he didn't bring anything for the rain.
Because he was like, I am going to manifest that I will be there
I'll
for
be back
summer.
in Southern California by
then I'm coming back home.
So
of course he did.
Yeah. So, we were there. We didn't leave for Christmas because at that point stuff was spiking, and with a tiny baby, we didn't want to risk it. So
I wouldn't have risked it with a tiny baby
up there.
Yeah.
So it was a challenge.
What kind of a mom are you?
I'm sure my kids will tell me someday what kind of a mom I am. I don't know.
What kind of a mom do you think you are?
I try to be a really present mom.
Yeah.
And I try to be really accountable. I try to be really loving. It's hard. I feel like that's one of my struggles as a parent is like, am I doing this right?
Yeah.
And right for each kid, because they're different kids and they have different needs. And I know that there is no doing it right. So I'm just trying to do it to the best of my ability for my kids.
I'm just trying to not fuck her up in the way that I think I'm going to.
I was going to say, here's the thing. I suspect I'm going to fuck them up. So I'm just trying not to do it too badly.
You said you have one of your kids as a bookworm.
Yes, my oldest, for sure.
Yeah. Did you see that from the very beginning?
It was there, but I think that's a funny thing about having twos. Like with your first kid, with a lot of things, you just think, this is how babies are. This is how kids are. And then you have a second and you're like, oh, I didn't realize that each kid is unique in this way.
From the moment. I had my psychiatrist tell me yesterday that the disposition of your child from the very beginning, they're going to change, they're going to fluctuate, they're going to do and become whoever they're going to become, but their disposition doesn't change. Who they are in this moment, you will start to see the type of person they're going to be as they get older. And I find that fascinating.
I do too. And also interesting as a parent to let them be who they are. Like you have to let them tell you who they are rather than you telling them who you want them to be.
Do you find that challenging sometimes?
At times.
Yeah.
At times.
Because how old are they now?
1 and 3.
1 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
We were walking our daughter down the street the other day, and she is talking to herself and singing, be a good girl, conceal, don't feel.
Oh.
From Frozen. But it sounds like a mantra that she's learned at home.
Yes, of course.
And she's also dressed in like a muumuu dress.
Yeah.
With a hat on her head. And sandals with socks.
Great.
And we realized in that moment our child is going to be special. She is going to be that kid that goes to school in whatever she wants to wear that day.
I was going to say, you have to decide what fights are you going to pick? Like, do you not want her to wear socks with sandals, or are you like, I don't care?
Yeah. The other day, because she's potty trained now.
Amazing.
Which is
game changing.
Game changer. But she decided that she wanted to wear her underwear on the outside of her pants. And I said, I don't care as long as it's on. I don't care. Because it's got the little absorbent, you know. So she's very new to potty train. And I was like, I don't care if they're on the outside. So we went to the grocery store with our gosh dang underwear on the outside of our pants. And I was like, they're on. Yeah.
I mean, it's just, that's the thing of like, I feel like it's that constant negotiation of what do I care about? Like, what is my value here? And what is my family's value here? You know what I mean?
Are you done? Yeah. You're done. Yeah. Copy that.
Two's busy.
Two is a lot. We have 3 embryos left, and I think to myself, I could have 4 kids.
Maybe.
If I had 4 nannies.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know. Yeah.
This question of like, can women have it all? I think it depends on what your definition of all is. And everyone's definition is going to be different.
Yeah. I think that having it all also shifts and it changes. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize how little desire I would have to ever leave my daughter. I honestly didn't.
Wild.
Did you ever consider not going back to work?
No.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
And I feel good about that decision. You know, I love my job. I love what I do. I like going to work.
Yeah.
And I also like setting that example for my kids of like, you know, mom and dad love their job. Not every day, but like they love their job and we go to work and we like, you know, and I want my kids to have that example of like finding a job or career or pathway that makes them happy. Not every day, because I don't think that that's
possible.
Mm-hmm. But, you know, hopefully we are setting an example for them, because I do think as a parent, that is the one thing that I have realized is it's so much about what you do and not about what you say. At some point recently, I asked my oldest to do something and they looked at me and said, I'm not available right now. Because that's something I've said to them. Which is, I'm not available right now. You know what I mean? And it's like, it all just gets turned right back around on you. Or the other one my girlfriend taught me, which is actually useful. I'll sometimes say, let me think about that. You know what I mean? When the ask
it pauses it.
Yeah, it pauses and it gives me a chance to like not react quickly from a rash place. I'll say, let me think about that. And now sometimes when I ask, can you grab the napkins? Let me think about that.
Right back in your face.
Yeah.
I love it.
You know, it's so much about what you do and less about what you say.
I was walking down the street the other day and my daughter is very little and very smart. And she's got a mouth on her, so she's got my mouth, my husband's brain. It's a really, but she also looks like she's like a year old. Like she looks really little, tiny. Even though she's like 20 months. And so she's walking down the street dressed like an old lady in her muumuu. And I hear, oh my God, oh my God, oh my. And I'm like, what is going on with this child? And I turn around and she is just saying, oh my God, over and over and over again, because she's dropped her flower on the ground. But she's like, oh my God. Oh
she's
my God.
She's a touch dramatic.
Over and over and over and over again. And I got it on video because I was like, number one, I didn't realize I say, oh my God, so much. But number two, the drama that was coming out of this child. If she has a tantrum and goes onto the ground, she doesn't fall to the floor. She gently places herself down on the ground, assumes the tantrum position,
and then continues.
I was like, oh my God, I appreciate that she's very mindful. Safety first. But like, and then leans in hard to the tantrum. It's crazy.
It's wild.
It is wild.
And it's so funny. This is another parenting quote that I really liked. It's something about whatever triggers you in your child is probably something you need to work on yourself.
Well, that's that one finger pointing at someone else. There's 3 pointing back at you, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. What advice do you wish someone had given you before children?
I feel like I got a lot of good advice. One of the best pieces was don't do anything while the baby is sleeping that you can do while the baby's awake. So like my kids are very familiar with chores. Clearing the dishes, doing laundry, things like that, because I think in the beginning I thought I needed, to be super present with the baby all the time. And it was like, no, you can incorporate them into your life. And I think that's a good lesson, in terms of even now. My toddler, basically as soon as they started walking, clears their plate at the end of a meal. And, it's so much easier to start young and then try and...
It absolutely is.
So things like that. I'm trying to think about other advice. It's hard, too, because it's like everybody's experience is going to be different. Everybody... Again, that thing of, can you have it all? It depends on what all looks like and defining that. And I think also what you were saying, it changes. What advice would you give?
Relinquish your expectations.
Yeah.
100%. I think that every time I've gone into a situation with my daughter with expectation at all, it gets destroyed. I think that was one of the best things. And then the other one was that your child just wants to know that you're there.
Yes.
And so it doesn't matter if I go to work. It doesn't matter if I come home from, like when I come home from work, if I come home late, when I'm home, I have to be present.
Yes.
And granted, like you said, present doesn't always mean staring at your freaking kid and making sure that you're playing with them all the time. That's not present.
You be present,
you have
a
to
meal
be present
together
with them.
Yeah.
And whether that means you're putting the laundry away together, like we have a stool, she wants to put laundry away with me. That's awesome. I love it. She loves to clean everything. We go through so many sandy wipes in our house because my daughter takes out one, cleans an inch, and then thinks she needs another one. But she loves to clean. It's
great.
And I love it. It's fantastic.
It's like, it's part of the household. Like my kids know it too. They each have a mop. You know what I mean? Are they the most effective moppers? Probably not, but we're all in it together. And they know too, especially my oldest my youngest knows it too. Like if you make a mess, you clean it up.
Yeah. I also think that that's one of the beautiful things that I've learned with my child is that I have learned that I need to be the person that doesn't care if something gets done quickly.
Yes.
As long as it gets done.
They work on their own time.
Because also, like, I would rather do the dishes with my daughter, or I would rather cook dinner with my daughter and have it take twice as long.
Yes, which it will.
She is, 100% it will. We have chia seeds all over our floor right now this morning, but she made a phenomenal oatmeal this morning. She does it all. It takes 10 times longer, but she's learning how to do it.
Yeah.
We're spending quality time together.
And she's getting self-confidence from that.
Confidence from it. She loves to bake now. It's just wonderful. But my God, does she move slow.
Oh, so slowly and like has to do it their way. Like, I got this. Okay.
She is, my mother said, good luck. And I feel like I am raising myself. I'm just hoping that she gets my husband's patience
it's
with
hard.
me. Yeah. If you could go back, I like to ask this question. If you could go back and give yourself at any point in your entire life a piece of advice, what would it be and when?
Trust yourself. And I think that is something I also try to instill in my kids. Like I don't want them to have self-doubt and I think we all have those voices in our head that tell us we're not good enough or whatever. And I wish somehow I could have given myself more confidence at a younger age. But I don't know. I mean, but also this is my journey. You know what I mean? This is how I ended up here.
On that note, I'm glad you ended up here.
Me too.
I can't wait to see, like, as your friend, I can't wait to see what what life has in store for you.
Oh,
but as
thank
someone
you.
who loves working with you and loves watching you, I just can't wait to see what that has in store in your career, because it's going to be long.
Thank you. I appreciate
Yeah.
that. Hopefully we'll do it again soon.
Yeah, I would. I would love to. Anyway, you guys, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. But this has been Danielle Panabaker. Where can people find you? Right. I mean, we have no idea when this is going to air. So
Instagram is the best. I feel like same as you. Are you present on the other apps as
Not
much?
really.
Yeah, Instagram I feel like is the best way to find me.
Yeah.
That's me at D Panabaker.
Well, there you go. Okay. Awesome. Everyone have a wonderful day. Thank you for watching and listening to Blah, Blah, Blah. And thank you, Danielle Panabaker.
Thank you for
coming
having
in.
me.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Blah, blah, blah.